Alright, so the patch would be live in a couple of hours, and I just like to go over some of the changes if you guys haven't seen it yet. If you guys wanted to hear it instead of go through a list, then this is that video for you. At the same time, if you wanted to watch my thoughts on Season 0 coming in a few hours as well, I'm super excited about it. I'm actually going to start playing in about 30 minutes and see where that goes, right? Disenchant, and I'm going to stream that as well. So if you wanted to watch that, click on this link down below or this card somewhere in the screen. So first and foremost, they updated energy and card draw scaling. So essentially they've added one card for the first 2 turns of player 2, and that's because according to data, player 1 was winning more so than player 2. So that's about the only change. Second, AoE will now be considered as multi-attack. AoE cards will now require that they equip charms before multi-hit attack instead of non-multi-hit. Effects that specifically apply to single target, to single attack, and AoE, such as Rage and Bubble and Feather. Because these cards, although they do have that AoE effect, Bubble especially and Feather, where Bubble Burst, right? It does AoE, but it's essentially triggered by a single attack. And multi-attack hit charms will now need a specific multi-hit attack charm, right? And they've actually really looked into dull comps and AoE comps in this patch. Like this, for example, damage reduction coming from all sources will now stack together correctly and cap it by 35. I understand back then there was the wall gecko and then the pangolin scale, which did about 50% damage reduction, which is crazy. Blood Moon is basically pure damage now. Damage reduction does not affect Blood Moon anymore. And now into the most important part of the patch, card balance changes. So Biden, I really like this change because Biden used to be somewhat of a dead card in the past because you could remove the debuffs on an ally, but what if you draw the card, but what if there isn't a debuff, right? It's basically a dead card. So adding that retain really makes this a bit more useful, right? You always have this debuff cleanse at the ready. Garish Worm, it now applies 2 poison on top of the bonus damage that it does. Now, a lot of people were saying that they preferred the 2 poison to be applied to other Axies and not the target, because at the moment it only applies the 2 poison to the target, right? So why would you like to put poison on a target on the front line, for example, that already takes a lot of damage? That's what they say, but it is what it is. I mean, I would prefer that as well, for it to be to the other Axies. Next, Thorny Caterpillar. They've increased the damage by a whopping 5 damage. Amazing. What a change. Super excited about that. Tassel, they increased by 10. Sandal, they increased by 5 as well. Now, what I would have liked to see with Sandal is increase the fear by 2 more turns. Because at the moment, it's a 2-cost card, right? But it only does 2 turns of fear compared to Cute Bunny, for example, and other cards that do 4 turns, and they're single target or single energy cards. I understand it does 50% more damage, but come on, it's a 2-cost card. Koi, they increase the damage by 5. That seems to be the story here. Sea Slug, the only one with special treatment, from 110 to 120. They increase it by 10. Innocent Lamp, this is probably one of the really good changes in the patch. They've removed innate, but the 0 change is really good. Because imagine spending 1 energy just to copy another 1 energy card, right? Now you have to spend 2 energy just to spend 1 card. It's kind of bad. So changing it to 0 that just makes it balanced. Zen, it's just a bug fix. Nothing fancy there. Shiba, this used to be a very underused card. They already buffed this by changing the threshold from 50 to 75. And now they're adding 1 more Rage to the Axie. So I think that's a really good change. I'd like to see Shiba used a bit more. Kaku, they've increased the bonus damage by 15. So from 50 to 65, I actually think 50 damage is good enough, considering it removes the debuff. But it is what it is. It's barely used in the game as well. Now, the most interesting change in this patch are these 4 here: Bamboo, Scaly Spear, Feather Spear, and Trunk. Bamboo now increases card damage by 6 every time it's used. Right, back then it does 20 damage for each bamboo in that same turn. Now it goes throughout the whole battle. So essentially similar to Nutcracker and Little Owl. But it's not going to be limited to that single Axie. It can be spread throughout the whole team, right? So essentially this is like taking V2 back into V3, the meta. Scaly Spear and Feather Spear have been really strong in V2. Now, Speaking about that, Scaly Spear and Feather Spear, they're both considered spear cards. So it doesn't matter if you have Scaly Spear or Feather Spear, they're all gonna benefit from that 6 damage, right? So if you didn't want to just have full reptile team, you could, because sometimes you'd like to have that bird, right? You'd have to have that raven thing. I forgot what it's called. You can do that. Trump, similar to Bamboo, it doesn't really benefit from other cards because there's only one Trump card. Same with Bamboo, but it's gonna be. And if you guys haven't seen this yet, if you guys haven't been building a team yet for this patch, I'm already predicting Scaly Spear and Feather Spear are gonna be swept from the marketplace. So you guys better be quick. Carrot, they added Banish to the card, and I mean honestly, Carrot was just really strong. It was just really strong, especially during 1v1s where they're just drawing Carrot every time, and you get free energy every time. It's really strong. Mary and Red Ear, they both do the same thing. They target any ally, they put a shield, or if initial, shield the whole team 50% of the base stat instead. So this is if you guys have been having trouble with AoEs in the past, AoE teams, so this would be an answer to that. If you have Mavis, if you're a Mavis user like me, where it dies from one chubby or one earwing, this would be an answer to that. Sponge, target any ally next turn, apply 3 damage boosts to other allies if its shield is broken. So from applying 5 damage boosts to one Axie, it now does 3 to other allies. So I'm not sure if it includes the actual target, right? But we'll see. If it does, I mean, if it doesn't, then I think that's still good. Because normally you'd like to have the damage boost on your attacker Axie anyway. Not going to be on the shielded Axie, right? And a sponge user would probably be on the front line or mid line anyway. If you give them damage boosts, they're probably just not gonna be able to make too much use of it. Pupae, target any ally next turn. If the target ally is attacked, other allies gain 1 damage boost. So this is gonna be similar to Watering Can, where if you hit any other ally or the whole team, they get 1 Watering Can per hit. So this is gonna be amazing against AoE or pretty much against any team, right? 1 damage per hit to all other allies. That's gonna be a lot of damage. Pupae is gonna see a lot of use. Grandma's Fan pretty much just removed innate. It was just really strong, especially for first turn players. They do double Grandma's Fan. It was way too strong. Rune Changes. So this is a well-deserved change. Bloodlust was way too strong. Healing for if you do an AoE attack, it heals 36 HP on 1 energy, right? On top of the damage. That was way too strong. So now AoE hits will now do 3 HP per hit. So it equals out into 12 still. Actually, it's just 9. It's less. It's actually less now. Energy Guru. It used to do 8 damage. Now 6. I use this a lot against other Magnus users or summon users. It was just a really good way of dealing with them. So unless they have the egg rune, which increases the HP of summons, the 8 to 6 doesn't really change too much. Hardy Warrior is just a text change, nothing really too much. Miracle Leaf, this is again another nerf against AoE. So back then, even AoE attacks would do 15. Now it just does 6 for AoE, and single target it stays at 15. Sturdy Fighter, it depends. Sturdy Fighter, single attack consumes 25% from 50, and the shield now does 2 times that amount. So it totally depends on what you're after, right? If you like damage more, or if you like shields more. But this new change essentially gives you more bang for buck. So to give you guys an example, let's say you put up 100 shield. With the previous patch, that you would take away 50 shields and do 75 bonus damage. On this new patch, you take out 25 shields, you keep 75, and do 50 damage. So you do less damage, but at the same time, you keep more shields and you get more bang for buck. So it all depends if you prefer to be more aggressive, then yeah. The previous patch is better, but if you like more efficiency, the new patch is better. Dominant Predator. Now I'm already claiming this. This is gonna be one of the most sought after runes in the game. Because every single attack now applies bleed for 2 turns if the target doesn't have bleed. but it has to stay above the threshold of 75%. I mean, that's still a pretty good trade-off, because now it does bleed every attack. And on top of that, keep in mind, this card does 20% more damage, so it's like having its own vulnerable, and 10% less damage from bleeding enemies. That's really strong. That's really strong. Heaven Echo, they just increase the shield whenever an Axie uses a skill, from 8 to 15. So if you're a stall user, this is gonna be one of the cards that you'll be using. Curse Ritual, another change versus AoE. So single attacks do 5 damage per card. AoE now only does 2. It's a bit less, but yeah, they're really nerfing AoE. Poison Touch, it now has been changed to solo. Only one Axie can use this. And then lastly, Wicked Ward. I haven't seen this used at all, but basically it adds 15 shield whenever you play a curse card, and it now adds Gravel Ant and Snail Shell as a curse card. And that is it. Let me know what you think about the whole patch. New comps, and again, just a reminder, Scaly Spear and Feather Spear. Start looking at that now. If you guys wanted to see my thoughts on Season 0 starting, let me know in the comments below, and click the link in the description below as well for the next video. Thank you so much for watching.